Welcome to Two Psychics. This is Michael Edley, evidential medium and mystic, discussing all things spiritual.
Hello, I'm Mary Amy of II Psychics, an intuitive wisdom coach, tapping into your mystical life and sharing messages I receive about you.
How are you?
I am doing very well. How are you? Good evening. And welcome to Two Psychics.
Yes. How is everyone this evening? Our listeners, our viewers. Okay, well, here we are, Two Psychics. We've made it to episode 60. It's July 22nd, 2025. And tonight is all about paranormal. And we have a wonderful guest, Dana Louise, who's an art author, abductee, and experiencer. So it's going to be a really exciting evening tonight. She's in the waiting room, and I just by accident threw Michael in and put her out, but here we are. So before we get into paranormal, she's going to come out in about 15 minutes. What is going on with you, Michael? How are you?
I've been keeping busy, and if you see, I have a cup of coffee still, and it's, getting late into the evening, but I'll be burning the midnight oil. So a couple projects I'm working on, and I'll be doing a lot of stuff late. But it's good. I'll be talking a little bit more. Some of it, I don't want to go full disclosure on it yet because some things are still in the works. And there's some interesting things coming up. I'm working on some new music, have a couple new projects, and I'll be sharing a lot more of that soon. But have, some new events coming up. I'll be doing a lot of musical events this whole weekend. I have some large musical things going on. So yeah, I'm keeping busy. I'm keeping very busy. And what I'm a little fascinated with today is, being a musician, I think if anyone has turned on their social media, the radio, the TV, we're all hearing about Ozzy Osbourne, and if people don't know who Ozzy is, Black Sabbath, a musician and band from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. And very interesting. He was one of the first musicians that I had started listening to when I started playing guitar and started trying to be a musician. So it's interesting. But what I found most fascinating about my social media feeds, the radio, the TV, well, not necessarily TV because I don't watch TV, but my radio and my social media feeds was everyone grieving such the heavy loss of Ozzy. And it's weird. I think we grieve celebrities, musicians, athletes in a way that kind of pulls us out of our own understanding of death. It's really the only time people bring it to the forefront and start talking about death, dying, transition into the spiritual realm. And I think it's something people should start bringing their awareness to, and not in a negative way, and not focusing on the grief and the pain and the tragedy around it, but I really think it's important for people to look at their end of life, really sit and think. If you're on your deathbed, if you're taking your last moments of breath, if you're going to be in the last moments of this physical world, did you do the things you wanted to do? Did you handle yourself and carry yourself in the way that looking back on your life will make you proud, will make you understand that you've made a difference, or you've given back, or you've done something to implement some kind of change. And I think the only time people focus on death and dying is when a celebrity, an athlete, whatever that may be that dies, or someone very close to them. And we really don't think about how short this life, this human existence really is, and we never know when the end is going to be. So the one thing I would say to anyone out there, if take Ozzy for the example, if he influenced you in some way, shape, or form, and you're grieving over that's cool. And do that in what, makes you feel good in that situation and around that pain and that grief. But I really think you should utilize that for some self-reflection and think about your own life, and think about in those moments before you're ready to pass on in the spirit, did you do the things you wanted to do? Did you carry and handle yourself in the way that was really, truly important to you on a soul level? And, that's something I went through when when I had to release, a company that I owned for almost 22 years. My wife and I had a very large business that was consuming me. And that was one of the things, I was kind of in this divide. I've always been a medium, and I had to, this calling that was on my soul was being put in the background. It was being put on hold because there were so many other things taking up my space and taking up my time and my energy. And I had to sit and I had to think about this. This was something that I put a lot of time and energy into, and I thought about it. And when I was going to be sitting there on those last moments of my life, the money and the properties, the business that I built, that was not going to have any impact on how I handled myself and what kind of difference did I make. The money didn't matter. And I thought, wow, there's things I can do that I can really give back and I can do to make a difference. I could show people in that my evidential mediumship, that the continuity of life exists beyond the death of the body. I can create more music. I can put things in that will help uplift, that will help, just make me happy and make my soul sing, and that was part of it. And that was something I truly had to sit with for quite a while. This wasn't like hours or days. This was several months that I meditated on this. I brought in my collective guides and wisdom, that divine presence of God. And I really had to sit with that energy of, on my dying moment of life, what would be most important when I reflect back on my life? And what I was doing didn't reflect what I wanted. So I think that's something that everyone should take to heart and everyone should think about. When you're about to leave this physical world, how did you handle yourself, and what kind of impact did you make in your life and the lives of those around you?
I want to get back to what you initially said, and then I wanted to respond to what you were just talking about. Creative people tend to keep late hours. I'm somebody that I start working on something and I'm sitting there, and my boyfriend's next to me, and he'll be like, "Are you going to sleep?" I go, "No," because I'm in the middle. I'm all excited, so I'm a late. I go late, and then I just make up for it in the morning, or I say, "Okay, well, I'll just get sleep another time." So that's part of being a creative person. Also, as a painter, I always did that. I painted till I was done. I didn't have an end to it, so I'm fully on the same page as you in relation to that. And in the latter part of what you were saying about basically having regrets, we're taking our mind off of our own lives sometimes in what's going out here in the physical reality, celebrities or famous people or something that seems more interesting, because maybe people are walking around having a really dull life and they're not engaging with their truest self. They haven't awakened. And when you decided to move away from these businesses or move into more so the mediumship, you were being to your truest calling. And that's probably why people get fascinated with some of this stuff out here that looks like glitz and glamour. At the same, I mean, if you really hard look into some of these people's lives, they've probably been doing a lot of suffering. I don't know if they were having such a great time on the outside. Oh, there's all these pictures and paparazzi, and is it really that glamorous? I mean, there's, it's still work. So it doesn't really take me anywhere. I'm not fascinated with that, because I kind of see behind the curtain what's really going on. So I'm grateful that here we are together doing this and you engaging, because when I came to you and said, let's do a podcast, two psychics from the East Coast, it was perfect timing. So intuitively, I must have known. Speaking about our topic, before we bring her out, I'm going to bring up, what is it tonight? It's paranormal. Okay, so what we do here, I guess you could consider paranormal or supernatural. Paranormal is a broad term. It covers manifestations of many subjects, told in folklore, myths, and sometimes it's dubbed science fiction, isn't it? Paranormal defies explanation beyond scientific knowledge and understanding. So it relates to ESP, psychic abilities, your perception, parapsychologists, ghosts, spirits, communications through clairvoyance or telepathy, which is what Michael does with mediumship, Ghosts, poltergeists, werewolves. These are just a few because there's many. Vampires, demons, cryptids, orbs, hauntings, UFOs, abductions, Bigfoot. Now, some of those we've already covered. You know that. Tonight, I'm going to explain who's coming on, and she's fascinating. I can't wait. I've already watched some of her YouTube, and she's written a book. And I want to just throw in there supernatural, because sometimes they say paranormal and they stick supernatural, and they kind of have some crossovers, I guess. It's up for interpretation. It's beyond the laws of nature, afterlife, and it might pertain to religion and faith. And also it might be about entities that aren't dead, like I speak about angels and fairies and gnomes and elves and goblins and earth spirits and sprites. What do you think, Michael? Before I tell you about
Well, I'm open to all of it. I find the more we delve into some of these topics, the more we don't know, and it's interesting. Yeah, we don't. I think we're constantly learning and understanding. And look it, I talk to I talk to the dead. So who am I to say anything is or isn't real or fake? I think we have to keep an open mind. And the interesting thing is, as new technology has presented itself to many people, paranormal investigators, people, exploring the wild and picking up on crazy footage, how can we disprove that? Especially the stuff that's been hidden from us for so long, that now there's disclosure coming out. You have people that are really high ranking, Air Force pilots, that we know these people aren't crazy. We know these people weren't in some kind of hysteria induced, drug high or whatever it may be. There is some really factual, solid information coming out that makes you think, wow, maybe there's something to this. So I think it would be a disservice to everything and everyone if we said, no, it doesn't exist or it doesn't happen. I think we have to keep an open mind. And come on, we're this little tiny small speck in the universe. I think it's ignorant to say we're the only thing here, and you have a lot of people that would approach it. Oh, it'll upheave modern religion. It'll throw society on its head. No, not at all. I think the more we get to the truth and the understanding of what is truly going on, the more we'll realize that there is a divine presence that's intertwined between all of us. It connects all of us. And I think there's really amazing information and findings that are just going to keep coming up.
Yes, totally. In fact, since my baby dog Elsa passed away, it's left a very large hole, gap in my life. And I'm doing all the things that I've been doing, but I have more time because I was taking care of her for the last 6 months. She was sick. She was dying, which I was in denial about. And I've been working on my book, which is all about my experiences with the paranormal. And I have to say that it's really exciting. I can't wait for you to read it, Michael. And I've re-edited and edited, and I'm going chapter by chapter, and I'm speaking about my communications with angels and extraterrestrials, and my experiences, encounters with demons and dark entities, you could say. I did see some fairies along the way. I've seen quite a few things, and I'm actually putting in stories about my life, and I'm trying to add more humor because I'm a very serious person, whether anyone realizes it or not. And I didn't realize I was, but apparently I'm very serious about whatever I do. Go figure.
I'm looking forward to reading that book. And that's the thing, we speak about a lot of these topics and a lot of this subject matter because we've had our own experiences. Look, you and I have both had near-death experiences. You and I have both connected to energy and things beyond this physical existence. And, it's led you on your path. It's led me on my path. And it's kind of brought us back together to talk about these things. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we bring it to the forefront, the more we can start having an understanding of the truth behind it, what's been hidden from us. And look, they're discovering these ancient civilizations now with this new LiDAR technology. They're seeing remote civilizations that are tens of thousands of years old, buried in the jungles, buried in I mean, all different areas of the world that no one thought anything or anyone could have ever existed, never mind some type of advanced human civilization. But now we're having the proof. Modern technology is now catching up to what the mystics, the spiritual visionaries, the mediums, the psychics, the crazy people out there were always talking about, and what do they say? Conspiracy theories are a theory until we prove that it's true. And a lot of stuff is getting proved
Allowing it
true.
out. It's because they're showing it little by
Yeah,
little.
they are.
Because
They
guess
are.
what? Disclosure's coming. And so now I'm going to explain to you who this is, Dana Louise. She's in the waiting room. Dana Louise, I'm taking her bio that she sent me and also a little bit from her website, which is danalouise.com. Dana Louise is a wife and mother of 2 sons. She lives in St. Paul, Minnesota in the US and has worn many hats over the decades. Her past includes a finalist on a reality show in Norway called FOR NORGE. She owned a food truck, was a Death Doula, a Reiki Master Teacher minister, a thought field therapist, level II practitioner. So today, Dana completely commits herself to her work as an author and speaker. What is she speaking about? Her personal experiences with the weird began when she was still in the crib in the early 1960s when the Greys began to visit her. She means gray aliens eat extraterrestrials. It's all covered in her memoir. You can get it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's called This Is Gonna Sound Weird, which can be found on Amazon. I just said that. Her website is danalouise.com. Please know that 10 months after this was published, a mysterious man handed Dana a classified file about her father. In it was complete proof of his involvement with NASA and more. Dana feels that she was traded for alien technology since infancy. Yes, Wright-Patterson and more. We never knew about Dad's truth and secret work. Okay, so let's bring her out here. This is so exciting. I watched some of her videos. You can find them online. Let's see. See, here she comes. Hi.
There we go.
Are you gonna come on, Dana? We're gonna see you. We're gonna hear from you. I can't hear you, Dana. Let's see. Ask to unmute.
I can see a picture of Dana, but
I know you can see her.
I can see a photo. Wait.
Hello?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. We now we want to see you.
Oh,
Hi.
there we go.
Yes, yes.
Hello, Dana. We now have audio and video.
Oh my
Yeah.
Welcome. Welcome to Two Psychics. Such
Hi,
a
you
pleasure to have you
guys.
here with us.
Well, I'm pleased as punch to be here. Thank you for this invitation. It's so kind of you. I'm going to take my goggles off.
I was too.
my old goggles. But thank you. I mean, this is wonderful and what an honor and a nice surprise and everything like that. So anyway, thank you so much. Yeah, the little mic and the thing were did their thing. I thought you guys did that, so I was just waiting. Whatever. I'm a boomer. Give me a break. Technology.
Okay.
So your story is fascinating. To say it's been a journey is to not give it the full effect and magnitude that it's been. So I'm gonna let Mary Amy talk a little bit more about it. But if you could just share a little bit about what you do now, and then we kind of want to get into some of this other history. And we have the story about the classified files and Dad, and I'm fascinated by that. So Mary, what would you want to say and have Dana open with?
Well, I just would like to say that you're very brave for telling your story and publishing it. And I think that you're fascinating, and you're obviously someone who is intuitive and able to connect on a lot of levels because you know so much. And tell us, start with wherever you would like to begin. I did watch some of the videos online. I'm going to order your book. I haven't had a chance. My little baby dog passed away the week before last, so I've been really focused on just getting through that loss. But tell us, begin where you would like with what you would like to share with our listeners and viewers.
Oh, okay. So first, it's so funny because I'm 63. I play pickleball. Okay, people. Um, I'm not a sporto. My husband is a sporto. I'm, the arts department, band and choir and theater and all that stuff. Anyway, so these ladies have been playing with them, and they're like, "Are you always this way?" Because I'm like, this like jocular, fun-loving type person, and I'm like, "Yep, this is me." And so I do think about this often. I know my dad had this bubbly personality or whatever you want to call it, but I also feel like there's the other side of that. There's the shadow side of that. My dad lived through the Korean War and he went through hell there. And I would say that a lot of my life too is like, what the heck, and just some of these events that started when I was in the crib, just for your audience to know. I started being, I don't know if you want to say abducted, because for the most part that I recall when I was a baby was, Grays visiting me, all these kinds of things. And then yeah, my whole life, and when I was visited by the Grays, for a couple days afterwards, I would have certain abilities and things that were odd. And then and there's residual that I don't even know about, and sometimes it just bubbles up and spontaneously happens, and usually in front of other witnesses and everything. But I I I I hid in what I call the cosmic closet. I got to look at you. You're up here. You're not down there. You're up here. I hid in what I call the cosmic closet because how do you explain these things to people? The things that would happen to me. If you're near me, spend a day with me or something like that, something funny, something weird, something peculiar is gonna happen. It just does. And it's exciting and it's fun, but sometimes it's a lot. And so it's kind of hard to be around people sometimes because they're not used to strange experiences happening, like going shopping and there's a ghost or something like that. It's like normal people, that's not their normal life. And so I kept quiet so I could be normal or act normal. Literally, when I dated my husband, I never brought this stuff up and I compartmentalized it really well. Like, even to myself, growing up, there were many times that I forgot that I was being visited by aliens because I just didn't want it to be true, but it just happened all the time. And so I was able to, like, this is what happens at night or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then here's my daily life. It's almost, and I hate to say this because this sounds negative, it's like abuse, some kind of an abuse or something like that. Um, I don't know the trauma effect of it or the outcome or whatever, but certainly I've able to I guess my personality or whatever, my decision making is like, I'm not going to sit around and cry. Yeah, a lot of it was shocking, but life goes on. And so, you just keep going too. But it got to a point where my little voice or big voice, whatever you want to call it, the voice, whatever you want to term that thing, that other wisdom that comes to you. Um, People have been saying to me for years, like, you should write a book, you should write a book. And I'm like, literally, this is the compartmentalizing. About what? About what? And then I'm sitting there watching a Harry Potter movie and I'm getting salty at him because I'm like, oh, Harry Potter, your life, whatever. And then the voice is like, oh, getting salty at Harry Potter, huh? Maybe that's your book. I'm like, oh gosh, snap. And my children know some of my stories, but they certainly don't know all of the stories. And they're my kids, so they don't really listen to the stories and they would forget the stories. But my grandma, who I believe had the gift, she left, and I don't have any diaries or notes or letters from her about that, which I wish I had. And so the voice continued on to say, well, then do that for your grandchildren. Give them that gift. And I'm like, you're right. So then I started to write, and that was a whole huge process. I spent 6 to 9 months of just staring at a blank computer screen, not sure of how to start this. And I thought it was going to like take 6 or 9 months and I'd be done because, write what you know. Anyway, And then I really decided, well, about 3 years into writing, something happened. Then I said to Spirit or this wise voice or whatever you want to call it, I'm like, oh, because my neighbor read it. My neighbor read the book and she's like, well, it's a little vanilla. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because I left a lot of like hard truths out.
Mm.
And so then I opened up to Spirit and I said, okay, all right, I give you 1 year. Notice how I give it a timeline. I give you 1 year to put what you want in the book and I'll do it, okay? And then the wheels kind of fell off the bus and everything like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually putting this in there. And then, spoiler alert, I wasn't going to put any energy exercises into the book. And then Spirit came back at me and said, you know what, Dana, if this is your one chance, because, you don't know if you're going to write another book or not, but if this is your one chance to talk to people, to talk to the world, you better give them some energy exercises to help them believe in themselves and everything. And so with that being said, this is kind of the mission that I'm on because I I don't like to show my face or talk about these things. I'd rather be hiding in that cosmic closet. But that's not right. It's not fair. And I'm of a particular age. And as an older person, you should be helping others along. So that's my passion is really just out of my experiences, what I know, what I've gleaned, and um, and the message that I want to give to other humans because I want people to stay what I call whole, holy human. I mean, we're facing AI now. We're facing a lot of very interesting times, being Minnesota polite. But I do see this disintegration of humanity or humanness. And so that's part of my voice is to come out and help people with their stories, but also to say, there are innate gifts that humanity has. I think what happened to me is just part and parcel to what the gifts and who we are as humans, what we should be expressing. We wouldn't necessarily need governments at that point because we'd all be able to manifest, what we needed. I feel that maybe that was the Garden of Eden and that all got shut down. And so now I feel that we're systematically being controlled and I'm trying for a prison break. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Okay.
Well, what's very interesting, Dana. The one thing we say on Two Psychics is when your soul's calling you for a purpose, or you have that soul calling, it's going to keep calling till you follow it. And I think that human experience and the ego wants to block us out, keep it safe. We have those primordial fears, but when your soul's got something to say, it's going to keep screaming loud and clear. And I believe that's what happened to you. And it's a
Oh yeah.
beautiful thing that you embraced that and you allowed that to flourish. And I think it was an awakening. I think
Yeah.
that's what absolutely happened. And it's a great story. What I'm really curious about, I know there's a lot of the alien abductee information and stuff like that in your history, but prior to that, were you getting like these intuitive nudges? Were your psychic abilities kind of calling you to more? Did you know about the spiritual realm, this divine realm around us? Were you tied into that? And then you think like, did that link you and open you to this alien connection, or what was that like as a young child?
So so I could be completely wrong in this, but my first recollection of the Greys visiting me, I'm probably 6 to 9 months old.
Mm.
That was my first encounter. And then that just happened until I was about 8 years old with the Greys. And I met them at night and during the day. That's in a whole nother story. And then other species showed up and that I didn't even know about. And I think that's true with a lot of people that they might not remember being abducted or having an interaction in any way, shape, or form. But so let me tell you, here I am. I'm this baby, but and I think when for children, for infants, or whatever, people in general, when you have a trauma, um, you know, um, it wakes you up, especially for children. It's like you come online because I wasn't sure if I was facing death, and even at that young age, it wakes you up. It brightens your synapses, everything. because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's like going into surgery or something like that. You just don't know what to expect. And then, I'd always be knocked out. Um, but so from that point, as I said, I know I innately have my own abilities, who and how I am, and I think that's kind of what. Well, it's faceted, but I think that's part and parcel. I think they also imbued me with some things,
Mm.
but so growing up, then I'm 3 years old or this, getting older and older. And it was very upsetting for me. And in my book, I write about this. I'm this little girl at the, coffee happy hour at church, and I'm salty. I mean, I'm a very lovely, bubbly person, but inside of me, I'm a little upset because all these people, was brought up Lutheran, all these people are saying, oh, I believe in the Holy Ghost, the holy blah, blah, blah. And, I'm at the coffee hour with them and I'm like, so you believe in ghosts? Oh no, little girl, there's no such thing as ghosts and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, you just said a half an hour ago, I believe in the Holy Ghost. Like, so he's the only one. There was just this, it
Mm.
just ticked me off, like the schism with religion and spirituality. And I knew about this. So for me, walking through the planet my whole life, I saw behind the veil and knew what was going on. And basically, I was like looking at, you know, people around me going, you're all gaslit. You guys have no idea what's going on around here. And so, but I can't say that. I would try to like, open a crack to certain people, little here or there, because if you start talking about these things, if you actually start to talk about it, you're wackadoo, and so I kept quiet, unless there was kind of like a little secret password, and it wasn't until I moved into this house about 34 years ago, um, probably 5 years after I moved in, the lady down the end of the block, her and this other woman, they were, on the fringe, and so they started talking about it quite openly, and I felt very refreshed and supported in that, and being able to talk about ghosts or psychic powers or mind reading and all that kind of stuff. And certainly the three of us went through a lot of those kinds of things. It kind of freaked them out a little bit. I'm like, oh, I'm going to visit you in your dreams. They didn't believe that could happen. And then we started to do things like that. So I've always known, and it didn't make me exactly happy, because it's very frustrating, because I felt very much alone. This is the 60s, and the only like interesting book around was the Bible, so, as soon as I could read it, I'm like, okay, here's some weird stuff. I mean, we didn't really have bookstores. We had libraries, there was no internet, it's just a very lonely existence. And so, anyway, that's me.
Well,
So
it is fascinating in the Bible. There's so much supernatural, mystical aspects of it that people just want to discredit.
Yeah.
And again, I had a very similar experience being a medium from a very young age. My experience is connecting to people in a different dimension, connecting
Hmm.
to loved ones that were, beyond the physical body. And the same thing, being, half of my family being and raised Catholic, here I am talking to a priest, telling him different things I'm experiencing and seeing. And, oh, well, you know what? I need to be the intercessor for that, and come to me and talk to me. And
Yeah.
there isn't a direct line of communication. You got to
Yeah.
watch out for that. And it's weird how ancient cultures were
Hmm.
so connected to the divine realms. And it was a very
Oh, yeah.
personal
Yeah.
experience that was kind of taken away from
Hmm.
humanity. But
Hmm.
it's nice to see people like you, people like us, are reawakening. We're bringing this stuff to the forefront, and we're
Hmm.
making, we're putting these conversations out there. And it's very important for people to be open and start tuning into what's beyond these five senses. And
Yeah.
I can see the wheels turning for Mary Amy. I know she's got some questions
I have
brewing
so many questions. I'm gonna meet Dana in person, I've decided. We're gonna be
there.
forever friends. So Dana, what do you think the Greys wanted? Did they want
Oh,
DNA? What did they want?
well, Well, later on, okay, let's just go there.
Want that?
Um,
They wanted that.
I don't believe that I was tagged. The Grays tagged me, and actually, the lady down at the end of the block saw an actual microchip come out of the back of my neck. That's in the book. Um, but it wasn't until years later, I'm probably in my mid 40s, um, having a date night with my husband, sleeping downstairs, because the kids are upstairs, and you know, why do all these houses have all the bedrooms in one little area? So, I mean, your kids are little, you can't sit and watch TV even or have a discussion. So we would go downstairs and I wake up and I actually have pictures. I wake up and my head is hurting and I've got a headache and that's not normal. And all of a sudden I realize, uh-oh, I'm frozen. What's going on? Crap. Ooh, sorry. And I open my eyes and upside down, I'm seeing these little log creatures waddling in. They had sharp features on their face, just a stream of them coming in the room. Yeah, they're about, this tall. I call them the sea monsters, like Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember those old Saturday morning weird shows, like the
Yes.
Bugaboos and anything. Anyway, so they're waddling in and they're sharp featured. And one pulls aside, and I feel like she was female. And she's like, "Oh, are we scaring you?" And I'm speaking French, giving them the finger or whatever. I'm not literally giving them the finger because I'm frozen, but we're talking telepathically. I'm not moving my lips. They're not moving their lips because
Right.
that's how I communicate with
Right.
aliens. Anyway, um, but I'm like, why are you here? And they said, this is what I loved about this conversation. We're here to help your planet, which said to me they were off world, that they weren't interdimensional, that they didn't live, inside Earth or on another dimension on this planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they were from somewhere else. And okay, so I'm starting to move my head and blah, 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 blah. And then I get my head up on it's a pull-out couch. Um, I get my head up on the couch and there's my husband sound asleep, as usual when any of these things happen at night, like, oh, he's no help. And there's my toes. And over my feet is this huge, about this big, glowing light lamp. And it reminded me of the old dentist lamps. They were more like this size and they were very iridescent, like a shell. And so there's this lamp over my feet, and I'm like, oh, the whole time I'm like, here we go again. And out from underneath the light is this guy, this entity, this squiggly guy. And he's got long legs, long arms. He actually looks like a very smaller version of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the creature that came out at the end of the movie. That just creeped me out. Anyway, and that's a whole long story. Anyway, so very much like that, only his hips are about this big, and he's wearing a black Speedo. And I've never seen aliens wearing clothes, okay? Just to be, fair. I've never seen that. Anyway, um, but I knew in a minute, I'm like, holy moly, I know you. Because after the Greys were done with me, and that's a whole long thing, and I can tell you about that in a minute. Like the government actually gave me and said, like, okay, thank you for your service. Okay. Anyway, I was, probably what grade am I in? I'm probably third grade or something like that. And I started drawing these stickmen, but with long curly arms and long curly legs. And then another trauma response would be I'd draw this figure and then I'd sit back and rock and laugh. And I don't know why I'm drawing this picture, but I'm rocking and laughing. I don't know if I'm self-soothing in the rocking motion or what. If the laughter is nervousness, I can't explain it to you. But in the moment when I saw this creature, I knew that's what that was. Okay, so fast forward. Oh, and so he starts to crawl on top of me, and then I black out. Yay! And so the next morning I wake up, and my head is next to my husband's on the pillow, but I'm naked. And just for you to know, my husband and I are very modest. Also, I have two sons, And I would never sleep naked or anything like that in case there's an emergency or something like that. If my kids came in the room, I am not wearing lingerie. I'm not that person. I'm Minnesotan. We're a little prude. Anyway, um, so I always did that, and I also wore socks and everything because this is before menopause when I got hot flashes and I can't wear socks anymore. So I'm naked and I'm like, oh no, no, no. Because there's a part of me that wants to be like, I just imagined all that last night. But I also knew that what I was about to see was another symbol or signal of an abduction. Sure enough, I look over on the floor, I'm expecting it, and all my clothes are in a puddle. So it's like socks in a puddle, shorts in a puddle. Yes, I even was wearing underwear, and the underwear is inside the shorts. They were stretchy shorts. And then my t-shirt with my bra on the inside, just all as if my body had melted. Well, probably my body had melted. I don't remember being out of the bed or anything like that. Who knows what went on? But with the lamp, and I'm sorry, but we're adults, shooting towards my hoo-ha. I'm expecting that that was kind of a gynecological visit, let's put it that way. And it wasn't until going through and writing my book was very cathartic for me because a lot of times I had to put myself in those moments, in those events, and try to see it as a reader would, somebody who doesn't know what's going on. So I thought I did very good in this scene, but it wasn't until I was just done writing that chapter and I was talking to a friend of mine, and then she goes, "Oh," because I'm like, "Well, they took my eggs. I'm sure they took my eggs." And she's like, "Well, they took more than your eggs." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, what do you know?" And she's like, "Well, they have your husbands." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I never thought of that." You know, I'd never thought of that. So here we are, and they have the keys to the jewels of the family jewels, whatever you want to say, because they have both of our DNA, to be polite or whatever. So this is another part of that compartmentalizing. I love my sons so much and children, and I try not to cry or get upset when I talk about this, but it still triggers me to think that these creatures could have a fully my children, and I don't know how many, you know, fully. Or they could be making hybrids, or they could be cloning them, or they could be, who knows what they could be doing. And I can't really go there. I can't open my heart to those things. And people have asked me, oh, don't you want to do hypnosis or something like that? And I'm like, no, because here's the deal. Uh, Going through these things isn't exactly fun. Um, and I don't need to know more. And in fact, to know more, like if I actually got a clue of what actually was going on in this particular scene and moment, I I don't think it would be good for me and my psyche. I just don't. I handle as much as I can and it's been a lot. I don't need more. So, yeah. So yes, they took my DNA, and my children know that they could possibly or potentially meet a sibling because maybe one of these siblings comes here or something. Who knows? But we're prepared for it because that's how weird our life is around here. Anyway,
Have you ever, and I'm not doubting you, have you ever said no? Have you ever said you're not allowed back here? Have you ever stated that to them?
here's the thing. After that episode, and I'm learning more about
You have to
those
give
types of
permission.
things.
You have to give
The
permission. They're not
Well,
allowed to do that, are
yeah,
they?
right. And or because that's a whole big story too. But it
Okay.
was at that point after that that I'm like, oh no, bueno. And then, the internet was coming along, because before that, I'm not really finding books. There's no books on that and Barnes and Noble and all that kind of stuff. So those things started to come along. And that's when I started to do sacred ceremonies and ending contracts, all
Mhm.
these kinds of things, blah, blah, blah. And I cut all of that off. All of it up, except for the secret space program still was still interacting with me, and that's kind of stopped now, basically. But you have to understand that I'm dealing with a lot of different realms, and ending those contracts and those kinds of things. It's a lot of work. But yeah, no, that made me mad, and I didn't know that there was a possibility of ending that. But I do feel I was kind of tricked into some of this as a child. Um, Also, just kind of going back, there was at my dad's funeral, a man came up to my sister and myself and said, "Oh, I don't know why they fired your dad." And my dad always said he quit, okay, work. He was an electrical engineer, and you mentioned the file earlier, um,
Mhm.
which was evidence of him talking with NASA and doing all these things, blah, 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 blah. So I always kind of knew that I was being traded for alien technology.
So can you talk a little bit about that? I find that fascinating. What was that experience, and how did that unfold exactly?
With the man?
Yeah, and your
Yeah,
father and him being linked to NASA and classified
right,
information and
right.
programs. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so this man said this at my dad's funeral, and he said, I don't know why they fired him. He was a genius. He changed the supercomputer. Um, and I'm looking at my sister like, told you so. I told you so. All this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But see, that my dad always said he quit, and he's saying he got fired. But this is the same time, and I'm gonna go into a little something else right here in a minute. This is the same time a lot of transition happened. I think I ended with the Grays. These other guys took over. There's a situation that happened in a minute here. But I think at that time, I think they came forward and said to my dad, Dana needs to go to Camp Montauk. And I think my dad had had enough at that point and said, no. And they're like, yes. And then I think it was like, well, I quit. And they're like, you're fired, kind of a thing. So I didn't go to Camp Montauk, but there's a lot of stuff that happened at that time that recently, like last year, memories started to bubble up about that. Because I think they were trying to whisk me away, like literally abduct me, like in the 3D world as I walked around as a child. And it didn't happen.
Now,
But
was
at
your father a government contractor, or did he like what was that connection to him in the government and the program?
Yeah, so he was working for Honeywell and Sperry Univac and all that kind of stuff, and working on the supercomputer. But so this file that I got that you mentioned a little bit ago, that okay, so this file was I got a phone call about 10 months after my book came out from a gentleman who called my cell phone, and I don't give out my cell phone very easily, so I don't know how he found me. And he goes, "Do you know Don?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like my dad's been dead since 2010. Like, what are you calling me about? And he goes, Don't hang up, don't hang up. So I was cleaning out a desk that I've had for 30 years, and I found a file behind one of the drawers. Would you like to have it? It's got pictures and things like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. But right away, I'm like, oh my God, what a bunch of baloney. This is amazing. So to make a long story short, I met the guy the next day, and he hands me this file. Now, as you can see, it's very clean. Most desks and drawers are like felt factories. They make felt back there, and they get very, very dirty. But yes, inside here were all kinds of, oh, look, there was an actual picture of the supercomputer. Because I went to a MUFON meeting. I'm like, hey, does anybody know what this is? And they're like, oh, yeah, it's a supercomputer. And I'd been praying a couple months earlier. I'm like, oh God, I wish I had pictures of my dad with Hubert Humphrey. My dad was a Republican. Hubert Humphrey was not. But he knew my parents' names and all this kind of stuff. Very weird. And like, there's all these pictures in here. There's like proof after proof after proof of my dad with Hubert Humphrey. Um, but then there were these classified papers, and if you go to my website or something, you can see some of them. I have to blur some of it. But Spirit said to me, actually, hey, take a picture of this one form. Um, and so I did, and I posted it on Facebook, and guys were responding, going, so your dad was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base? Oh, so he was doing D whatever you call it, I can't think, D reverse engineering
Yeah,
the
reverse
the alien
technology.
spacecraft. And I
Wow.
was like, oh. And some of the papers in there say classified, and and NASA this and NASA that, and that my dad was working on different rockets and systems and all these kinds of things and talking around the United States to different Air Force bases. And let me tell you, had that been common knowledge, I guarantee you my mother would have been telling all the little ladies at Bridge, well, Don's with NASA, Don's with NASA. I mean, I would have heard that like a parrot. Well, Don's with NASA. Never heard that in my life. Um, and it shook up my husband too, because it's like, well, when I met this man who found this file in a desk drawer that he'd had for 30 years, baloney, because the file goes from 1960 to 2008. And a couple of years ago, it still wasn't even 30 years. Um, so how's it from 2008 and this has been sitting in your house for 30 years? That, more baloney sandwich. I knew he was full of baloney. Anyway, but it shook up my husband because here was actual physical proof. Like, this is the craziest thing to have this file all of a sudden show up. So what I loved about it was confirmation for me in many, many ways. And I am going to start digging into my dad and his background and the Korean War and all this kind of stuff. Because I know Spirit's going to open up a lot of things for me. And so I think there's another book coming out of these things. Things that I don't really understand about yet, but I'll know as I go along. Anyway, so it was shocking for my husband to see these papers because it was clear confirmation that everything that I'd been saying was real and true. And also that some ex-agent, I'm thinking CIA or something, somebody from what I call the Alliance, is trying to help people like you, people like me, with our voices and confirmation to be like, to be supportive. Because he didn't have to give me this file, but he did. So there are people working behind the scenes that are trying to help us get our message out there. So I'm just, as I'm blobbing, let me just back up because there was this thing I wanted to show you a minute ago. Um, when now I put a yellow post-it note on this because I did this on one podcast and I'm like, oh, that's so totally fake. But I put a post-it note over my maiden name because I don't use my last name. I try to keep things I try to protect my family so I don't use my last name. And of course, I'm not going to give you my maiden name. But this is the actual tag. Let's see if I can do it. You can see without much glare. This is from 1970, this tag. And what happened was it says presidential visit, special guest, October 29th, 1970. So Rochester Airport. My parents took me out of school. It's 1970, so I'm 8 years old. And they during the day they bring me to the airport. We go in. I remember getting the tag. We walk out onto the tarmac. The media standing to the right. So literally, people, if you could do it, if you've got the skills, the radio was there, the newspapers were there. I don't think television was there, but you can look up this stuff. So I go out onto the tarmac and there's, a small crowd. I'm like the only kid. And here comes Air Force One. And the door pops open and out comes Tricky Dick and Pat Nixon. And Pat Nixon walks up to me. I mean, everybody parts their ways and walks up to me and hands me a long stem rose. And it wasn't until I was writing my book that I'm like, oh my God, that's like a Mason signal or sub rosa or something like that. She's handing me this rose. And when I'm writing the book, I'm like, I literally went to, because I'm like, I remember it being a dismal day. So I literally went into the weather report. This is the kind of research that I was doing because I want to make sure that my memories are as clear as I remember them. Was the weather like that? What, blah, 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 blah. And the voice said to me, you gotta go look up the presidential diary. I'm like, what's, I'm like a a golden retriever. What's a presidential diary? What is that? I'm like, just Google presidential diary. I'm like, okay, presidential diary. And sure enough, there's this presidential diary where there's some secretary that keeps notes, like, you know, President Nixon went to breakfast. President Nixon had a call from Haldeman, blah, 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 all the notes of the day. So I go in there and I look, and I have this on my Facebook and probably my I think on my website too and stuff like that. Well, anyway, so what these papers are that I'm trying to show you, it's the manifest, the flight manifests for that day. And here's all the 30 some odd people on here, and Haldeman is one of them. And the top person is the president, and then just goes on, to some dippity-doo names, blah, blah, blah. But what's not on any of the flight manifests is Pat Nixon, which means that if the plane went down, nobody be looking for Pat Nixon unless like days later, well, she didn't show up for dinner. So that's kind of a big problem. And why wasn't she on the flight manifest? And so to me, when I'm like, oh my God, realizing as I'm writing, she handed me this rose. It's a Mason's signal, if you ask me, and she's not even on the flight manifest. That's not even legal. They legally have to write these things down that you're on the airplane. So I thought that was pretty cool. But this was the time when the Greys stopped visiting me. I started making these squirrely pictures of this other guy. And right about that time, that's when my dad lost his job or got fired, just about the same time frame. It's not all compact, but it's fluid in there. Is when I found myself standing outside my front yard and in my pajamas, and I now recently watching the Big Bang show. There's the one character, Amy, who's Sheldon's girlfriend, and she's wearing those pajamas, which is kind of triggering for me because I'm like, does the show know? Like, of course, Hollywood knows. It's like she's wearing the pajamas because they're really ugly. They're like a prairie dress with this yoke that has like fringe around it with these really obscene designs with bright colors, red, white, and blue, or whatever. They were just the dumbest things. Anyway, so I'm wearing those pajamas and I'm standing out on my front yard. And the first time I'm standing there, and everything starts shaking, and a sound starts coming. And I'm not going to do it at the microphone, but it's like this sound. Years later, I hear kids on like Xbox, they describe it as Legion. They call it Legion. Years later, the voice said to me, Dana, that sound of the didgeridoo and the Tibetan monks, those aren't for them to pray with. They were trying to open up the firmament. That's what that's about. They're trying to call back the aliens. That's what that's about. Because so everything is shaking and the sky is ripping open and spacecraft start coming through. So this happened a couple of times, big spacecraft. And usually they were met by smaller crafts that I believe were shadow government crafts. And this is the beginning. This is the super space program, people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but they're meeting. They're not fighting, but they're meeting. So it's kind of like, hey, what are you doing? All this kind of stuff, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so that started to happen. And now, after last year, I went to a conference and met other space people who were all spacey. But anyway, and it's like, so it was like I started to realize that I was being enticed. I think the contract ended with my father. He quit, didn't want me going to Montauk and all this kind of stuff. But what if they work around him? What if they go out there and show the little girl, oh, look at this. You like Star Trek because Star Trek was on. I mean, you like spaceships, don't you? Don't you want to see the pretty little spaceships? And I'm like, yeah, sure, spaceships. I'm standing out there. So at first, I'm watching the spaceships. And then the next thing you know, I'm on the spaceships. And I remember looking out the bay door as we're moving on one of these bigger rigs and seeing neighborhoods and stuff like that underneath me. We're not that high up. We're pretty close. At least it seemed to me. And it seemed as if they were taking people as they were sleeping and doing some kind of energy thing with them. And at the time I said, oh, they're collecting souls. That's how I termed it. Now, remember, this is the 60s, people. Fast forward to today, I might put that under the category of they were harvesting loosh.
Mm.
And so this went on, but also just so you know, I haven't met anybody weird like me because I'm on the spaceships. And then I was on a lot of water missions, and typically they were rivers. Just so you know, aliens typically will follow rivers and stuff like that because they're easy to see, and they navigate them that way. And then also, I've been at airports, and generally speaking, they're smaller airports. But usually, what I'm doing is witnessing what's going on. I'm not working there. I'm witnessing, and I'm especially on the waterways, I'm watching dignitaries coming on and off the craft. That's it's really like it's a lot when you see all of that going on, and there's emblems and symbols, like of like nations or stuff like that. I don't recognize them, but sometimes there'll be other people that are. I'll be hiding behind a box or something like that. Maybe I'll see a couple other people hiding. So I don't know if they're working with me or what we're doing. But so anyway, so that's part of the super space program that I worked with. There's more of that kind of thing, the whole 20 and back, if you want to get into that. But anyway, so in a nutshell, that's kind of my interactions with many of the aliens. And as I mentioned before, I was tagged, and that was when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, across the street. And I remember that. I can get into that if you want. But the weird thing was when I was writing my book, it just didn't even. It's like I knew it, but I didn't know it. It's like I had information, but it wasn't clicking, which is a lot of times. Anyway, um, so when I'm writing the book, I'm like, the voice said to me, "Yeah, but Dana, because this house was, just down the block, one block, where I got this tag, and this was during the day." And they're like, "Yeah, but Dana, who lived there?" And I'm like, oh, snap, that's right. It was my dad's boss's house. And I'm like, well, of course the Greys are there because it's my dad's boss's house. They're in cahoots. Makes total sense. Anyway, I'll stop talking. So if you have any questions.
You're lovely.
Oh, thanks.
You know,
I know I can talk.
No, but you know what first of all, okay, a couple things. Who are are you talking about human dignitaries you saw coming off the ships?
Yeah, yeah. Now, so you need to understand, I know you guys will dig this because it's like, the drones we had last year,
Yeah.
nobody even talks about them anymore. I'm like, oh my God, you guys, because they're like thinking they're ETs. Sure, sure. Because there were all of these drones out there. Sure, sure. Some of them are ETs. And you're going to like this part. Some of them are ETs, but some of them are hybrids. And some of them are shadow government. And then you have the dippity-doo humans that are trying to put drones up there. But the fifth element was spirit. There was the angelic realm up there trying to figure out what's going on. So stuff was happening. Something was going on. And I'm not quite sure if that had to do with CERN, but just so you know, there's more of those colliders. It's not just that one. There's like 5 or 6. I don't know how many. There are some in the United States. Those colliders are everywhere. So, and that was kind of the Montauk area where a lot of these drones were. So that's who's going on. There was a mixture of people up there. It's not just one thing. And I do believe, and I've seen it. There was a moon eclipse not that long ago, and I saw angels dropping down from that eclipse right underneath, and I'm like, can anybody else see this? I mean, they were physically there. It was the coolest thing in the world. But so in the world, a lot of crazy things are happening. I feel like dimensions are kind of colliding. I think people are experiencing a lot of woo-woo weirdness. To me, it's exciting. I love it because it's like everybody's joining my band. But I think it's happening because I know I'm of a particular age. This stuff didn't happen before. Something's different. And I don't know if that happens to do with the collider, with CERN, or what. or prayers. We've reached that critical point, but we've got the attention of a lot of different realms, and they're here, and stuff is going on. So I'm, if you want to be asleep, you go right ahead, eat your Doritos, watch football. But if you want something more exciting than Netflix, start to say the prayer of lifting the veil and have some fun. Join the band.
You're
Yeah, it's
highly
more fun. It's
psychic.
crazy. What's that?
You're highly psychic.
Oh yeah. Well,
You're
yeah.
highly psychic because you're seeing what the normal person out there who is brainwashed, I guess you could say,
Mm.
and you're seeing what they don't see. So it's there, but they're not seeing it. Just like Michael communicates with spirit, and I see different realms, angels, and receive information about people. You are highly psychic because you see a lot of different realms. I'm fascinated, and part of me, you're a very special human because
No.
you have these experiences which make you really fantastic. I don't know if
Oh.
you know that. No, but then my heart breaks for you because I'm so empathic, and I have so much compassion, and I feel horrible
Oh.
because it's way too much for one person. The fact that you're sitting here today and talking to us is blows my mind because a
Yeah.
lot of people can't
Mm.
um, they can't be grounded and have these experiences. It takes a certain kind of person, obviously. So you've overcome a lot. Um, I appreciate you sharing everything with us. Um, you told me, okay, you told us initially about the Greys coming to you when you were a baby, and then you said when you were 40, they came and they obviously did something to you. Do you think in the past, and I don't, I mean, I don't want you to share too much because I feel like it's a lot emotionally for you. Were they always taking something? They did a trade for you because they were testing you because then you then had these experiences and they could use you. And I know when they communicate, it's not your fault. They persuade. They put
Hmm.
you in a trance and they serenade you and they send some kind of love energy that makes people think that they're not harming you. I know.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm not that one. Nope, nope. I don't buy that at all. There's no love energy there. Nope, 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 no.
No.
Sorry, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. There's no love energy there, and
Okay, so but
I
you didn't feel like you were in a trance and they were persuading you. They just took.
no, nope. Nope. I wasn't in a trance. Um, what they would do is either knock me out or I would blank out just out of my own shock, so I'm not quite sure if it was shock or whatever. Also, you should know whenever I'm around aliens, there's a vibrational thing, and the Hindus speak of this in their temples when they talk about their gods and stuff like that. They describe it as fire and some other element or something like that. I'm like, oh, you're describing the vibration. Because I do believe that these entities need to be in a particular vibrational state, kind of like how fish need water, we need air, they need, and this is a human, this is 3D dense. This is really hard to be in. I mean, like we're like rocks, we're little plugs, we're
Yeah.
dense.
Very
And
low
these,
vibrating.
yeah, you said
Hmm.
a mouthful.
Yeah.
And they vibrate differently. And so it was always this vibrational thing. Now, um, with the Grays, I think that was the permission with my dad. Like they could come and visit with me. And like I said, I would have a special powers for 2 or 3 days afterwards. So sometimes I wouldn't even remember seeing the Grays, but I would wake up and I'd have these powers again. My sister witnessed that and ticked her off, because she was 7 years older than me and she could sit on me and tickle my feet, but I had, weird powers or whatever. So that kind of a thing. And I think Because I remember when I would start to walk, I kind of was like a realtor walking the grays around. I'm like, here's our dog. This is the living room, you know. So I think it was just more of that kind of thing. I don't think they harmed me, except for I do remember getting the tag that kind of hurt and pinched. So I think it was very, you know, they didn't really touch me so much, best of my recollection. But yeah, there's like, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan because number one, if you're really going to be good guys about it, why are you coming at night like a thief? You know, that's not cool. I mean, you could probably come and meet me during the day or some other type of interaction or something like that. This doesn't speak to me of friendly. And then the other guys, like I said, I only remember doing the drawings and everything like that. I doubt that they took anything from me at that point as a you know, like after the grays were done. Because I think the interaction that I woke up to was probably them, you know, and hey, I mean, there's some loony stories out there of people getting pregnant and having the babies and all this kind of weird stuff. I can't speak to that. I don't know. All I can say is that I have a sneaking suspicion they took my eggs. There was also my husband's DNA with me at the moment, and that my clothes were off, you know, all this kind of stuff. So there's clues. Um, you know, so that's all. But so I'm not a fan. I mean, I know there's other people that talk, you know, like they've had the Nordics or any of these other interactions. I might have too. But like many, many people, I think there's a huge number of people out there that don't remember any interactions at all. And I know I've had many interactions and I don't remember them, but there were clues that something happened the night before. I hope that answers your question a little bit. And yeah, it's traumatic, but I think my soul is I have a particular soul. And so I think I was kind of built for this. Of course, you know, there was an agreement before I came, you know, right? We all have that contract and agreement before we're born, if you want to believe in that. But I think it's just this whole mixture of how I am, who I am, probably family backgrounds, all these kinds of things, certain abilities, blah, 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 blah. And also, I'm a baby and it was happening, you know, right away. So it's kind of like I grew up with it, you know? But I also believe that my soul is a particular built of a particular type of stock that was also uh, made for this kind of in a way. I mean, I don't talk about my soul a lot. I do privately, and people come forward. Anyway, so I think that had a lot to do with it too. I think they were very curious. But see, you have to understand, it's just not the aliens that come and visit me. You know, I've had all types of entities come and visit me. I've had vortexes open up and almost swallow me. I mean, I've been sent out to deep space. I met a crystal skull who I have a sneaking suspicion is a AI, actual AI, because I believe AI is an actual entity. So it's not just that. Ghosts show up for me like actual humans. And my neighbor's dad punched me in the arm one night twice, really hard. Anyway, so a shadow guy showed up one night and he's just watching me. I don't think he was like some evil guy. And my baby, my younger son, witnessed that with me. So it's not just the aliens. There's just like anything you could name. I've seen it. It's come and visited me in the middle of the night. And so now after I broke that contract, I sleep a little better. You know, because every night was kind of like, what's gonna happen? Okay. I'm going to put on 3 pairs of underwear.
No, it's interesting. You talk about, you know, your inner strength. You absolutely do have that inner strength and that fundamental solid foundation that you can build this upon. I believe you have to have that to be able to talk about this, speak about it. And same thing as me as a medium, you know, it's like we're coming out of the closet to speak about this, you know, and we have to get over that whole human aspect to see, you know, what is our soul bringing forth. And it does take a lot of inner strength, and this isn't for the weak-hearted. So you absolutely, you are a powerful soul, and I do believe you're meant to speak about this. You're meant to release this truth into the world.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'm a little bit late. I could have done this long ago, but I just don't feel that I could have gone to work, done my thing, been a normal person and all this kind of stuff. And let me tell you also, once I came out, I'm a targeted individual. However, by the shadow government, by all these kinds of things. However, I'm of a particular vibration that after a while, because they can't touch me, they don't touch me, and then they give up because they're like, oh, well, good luck with that one. And yeah, because I'm kind of a loony in that way, and I love it. But here's the thing. Laughter is the best medicine. It has super saved me. And it's a high vibrational thing. Like I said earlier, I could sit there and cry and gnash my teeth and all this kind of stuff, but what's the point? I couldn't stop it until I stopped it. There wasn't much I could do until I fell into these situations. And like I said, there's been witnesses. So witnesses can come forward. Everything, that I'm saying, they could say that they saw it too, which is confirming for me. Because if I hadn't had witnesses, and I used to ask God this, God's, what's with all the witnesses? And the answer was because you wouldn't believe it, you wouldn't remember it, you would poo-poo it, and these people are here to reflect back to you that this is real and this is going on, even though I was in a lot of denial. But I just think, you have to have a sense of humor, and see, and lift yourself up and try to stay in a higher vibration, because then also if you're in a higher vibration, they can't touch you. You don't exist. They don't exist to you. You don't exist to them. Can you imagine, like if you believe in the Jesus story, him walking around worried all day about something like that? No, he was in a higher vibrational state,
Exactly.
So that's how that went.
Yeah, I do believe in divine timing, and I think that was at play with you, and your life experiences and things that you've been able to persevere through prepared you for this.
Oh,
so, yeah, absolutely. I find it fascinating. I hope we're going to have you back on.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that. Well, then we can talk about the other weird stuff.
Because this is fascinating, and we definitely can't cover all this in one episode. But wow, I mean, this has been an absolutely fantastic interview, and I am so glad, Dana, that you've been a part of Two Psychics. And the amazing thing is, you have the documents, you have the proof, you have the pictures from Dad. So your story, there's only, the chapters are just beginning. I think you're just on that first chapter right now. Even though the book's there's many more chapters to follow. Absolutely. Your story has to be talked about, and I think a lot of people are going to be completely intrigued and hanging on the edge of their seat listening to it.
Oh, thanks. Well, yeah, because if you read the book, it reads like science fiction. It really, really does. I mean, it's like I can't even believe it, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, nobody's ever going to believe this." But again, like I said, God gave me witnesses to help me and to help all of us. And I'm, older now, and I can get out there and share my voice. And we have Zoom, this is like magic, it's amazing. Like whoever dreamed that this would be possible. And I just want to say thank you again. Thank you to your audience, but thank you to you guys for holding space. Because it is cathartic for somebody as myself to be able to talk to somebody and have somebody listen and understand and not be ridiculed by that kind of thing. So thank you for holding what I'm going to call sacred space for myself and all of the other people that you have as guests, and also for your audience, because I want the audience to please understand these things are real. I literally would rather be eating Doritos and watching Jeopardy with my husband. that I just would like to be normal like the rest of you guys. But well, none of us are normal. I'm just going to say that. And we are holy humans. And we do the things that have happened to me, and the gifts that I have, I feel are innate, and I feel are the truth of what we are all supposed to be able to do, be, and are. I think that's our divine right. So have me back. Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of other stuff. Once now that we're past the aliens. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
for coming. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to try, and I'd like to have a phone conversation with you sometime.
Absolutely. I'm here after I'm done with pickleball, but I only played twice a week, so I got
Sometime. I'd
I would
love
love that.
that. Okay.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, you guys.
I
Thank you so
appreciate.
much.
And so
No,
tell everyone your website and the name of your
yeah.
book.
Okay. The website is my name, Dana Louise, danalouise.com. And here's my book. This is an actual picture of me. So it's like this is gonna see, it's not this finger, it's always backwards. It's not going or going to, it's gonna sound weird. I mean, I couldn't, okay, so actually a friend of mine, I'm like, what do I name this book? She goes, you know how like when you're talking to a friend, you're like, okay, like this is really gonna sound weird. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, that's the name of your book. And I'm like, I'm buying it. Okay.
Perfect.
It's on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Blah. There you go.
Excellent. No, it's been a pleasure having you on. I am
Thank you,
fascinated by
Michael.
our conversation. So anyone out there, any of our listeners that want to find out more about Dana, danalouise.com. And This Is Gonna Sound Weird, her book that I'm definitely going to be grabbing a copy of and reading
Awesome.
on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. But thank you so much for being a part of Two Psychics tonight. We really appreciate it. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I can't wait till the next time we have you back on and we do a little more deeper dive into you, your story, and all these other things.
I would love that, and that's part of my passion of what I want to pay forward to people. So I would appreciate that opportunity. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is going to be a good one. This might be one of our top podcasts once we put it out there and people are watching this. This is good.
Yeah.
Thanks, you
No,
guys.
thank you so much for being a part of two. I can't even talk now. I'm just so fascinated and caught up in this. I want to keep going for another couple hours, you know? I think we could go past midnight talking about this, but
oh yeah.
Dana, thank you so much. DanaLouise.com. We really appreciate it. Anyone that wants to find out more or do a little more deeper dive, her book, This Is Gonna Sound Weird, again on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And it's been a fabulous discussion. Thank you so much.
Blessings.
Thanks, you guys. Bye. Oh, you too, honey. I appreciate it. Thanks for connecting so much. I'm gonna let you go. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, wow.
Whew, my head's spinning so much I can't even talk. I can't even get the words out. No, that was good. That was fascinating. What I find so cool though about the whole story is, we can talk the talk and everyone has stories, but when you have pictures and documents and a whole folder of classified information, I mean, it puts her into a whole different realm of the story and the truth behind it, and it's some really interesting stuff. And I think we all realize there's this awakening happening, and I have to think, there's some divine timing behind that. And I like how she was really able to see the difference between like these intergalactic beings or things that are inhabiting our space, and also that separation of the interdimensional aspect of it. So very, very fascinating stuff going on there.
Yes, definitely. I'm definitely going to get her book, and she's a brave soul, and bless her, because those are a lot of experiences and it can be overwhelming. And how are you grounding yourself and getting through your everyday life in the 3D dimension? She's another realms, and she obviously also has done a deep dive into what's been going on, so she understands it, because there's more information out there. So we thank her.
And I think,
Dana Louise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the thing. Anyone dealing with this stuff and anyone, having these thoughts that people are going to think I'm crazy, or how do I discuss that? When we go on this inward journey and we learn about ourselves and who we truly are, what our soul's calling us to do, it puts us in a different realm. And I think we start to allow that shell and those barriers and that protective, energy that we hold so near and dear to the human experience. We start seeing that we have to get past that. We have to grow through that. And it's so important to push those barriers and push those belief systems, because there's so many other people out there experiencing these things, experiencing their intuition, their psychic abilities, aspects of mediumship, aspects of UFOs, alien abduction. It's so important that we bring it to the forefront. We talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the more other people will lose the fear that they're going to be called crazy or insane or a conspiracy theorist. Because like we said earlier, it's only a conspiracy theory till it's proven true. And a lot of this stuff is coming to the forefront, and the truth behind it is being shown.
This is just the beginning. I would say 5 years from now, it's going to be much more common. It won't be considered science fiction or or a myth or folklore. It will be known that this is what happens because everyone will come forward.
Yeah, well, just think about the little cell phone that we all carry around now, and the technology just that's in that, and how quickly it unfolded, and where did that technology come from? So that's a question for another episode.
Okay, so next week we are maybe having 2 interviews. We'll see, because we have a Palladian channel Ascension reader who we missed because there was something 1 week where we didn't do a show, and she went to Ireland, so she might be on next week, as well as Edge magazine editor Kelly Wagner. And then the following week we're doing a live show with her for her podcast, Being Curious. And then we have the host of the Angel channel, and that's all we have, because you have some other guests that you want to bring forward. So just let me know.
We got a lot of cool stuff that's going to be unfolding. So anyone out there, if you are on any social media, especially Facebook, like the Two Psychics podcast, we'd love for you to like and follow, get notified for any upcoming episodes, all the interesting, unique, bizarre, and intriguing stuff we talk about. But we'd love to have you follow that. If you are on Amazon, don't forget about Mary Amy's book, her dream journal, and MaryAmyOfficial.com if you want to check out anything Mary Amy's doing. IofTheSpirits.com if you want to reach out to me about doing any events, galleries, private readings, all that good stuff. If you're on Facebook, you can also follow my Eye of the Spirits with Michael Edley page. And again, the Two Psychics podcast page. But we are so glad you're here with us, and we're looking forward to the next episode. So hopefully you can join us.
And I also have an Etsy page, Mary Amy Official, and it's all my original artwork. And there's totes and t-shirts and hats and phone covers and notebooks.
Make sure you get that cool stuff, walking around, and get some cool artwork by Mary Amy.
Yeah, well, it was nice seeing you again, Michael.
And if they want a meditation album, they can always jump on any streaming platform and listen to my meditation album, Divine Journey of a Mystic Soul. All right, now we've done all our promos. We can't wait for you guys to join us. You guys and gals out there, join us on our next episode of Two Psychics podcast.
Everyone be well. Have a happy week. Happy summer. Bye-bye.